Good morning, I'm Mackenzie Mullane, and this is my research on the question, how are the limitations of students' rights an illustration of the First Amendment in U.S. public schools? After researching, I came to the claim that the limitations of students' rights demonstrate necessary safety precautions and ensure an efficient learning environment while still upholding the First Amendment. Now, before I get into why I came up with this solution, I want to go into exactly what is the Constitution and what does it protect. So the First Amendment in the Constitution protects 5 main things: the freedom of speech, religion, press, and the right to petition and the right to peacefully protest. Now, one main concept I learned during this process of research is that there's a lot of misconceptions nationally about exactly what the First Amendment does protect. And this is why I wanted to go into specifically how do these restrictions apply in a school setting. Now, the first source I used was the time, place, and manner source, and what this did is it allowed me to understand why are rights restricted in school. Now, the main reason that I found was that the purpose of a school establishment is to provide students with an education. So this means that the creative thought process that an individual may have is not the primary purpose of a school. Thus, there's limitations on the First Amendment. And as you can see, school settings obviously are very different in the manner that you speak in, because, for example, when you're hanging out with friends, it would be okay to use maybe a vulgar or a profanity, but in school you wouldn't use that type of language. Now, a main court case that deals with this is the Tinker v. Des Moines case, and this is where a Civil League duo, as well as other friends of theirs, wore black armbands in protest to the Vietnam War. Now, as you can see here, these armbands are not exactly eye-catching, and they don't seem to interfere with the school. However, the principal and the educators disagreed with this, and they were suspended from school. However, the students and their parents ended up suing, and in the end, they did win. And the main reason is because acts of symbolic expression are only unconstitutional if they, and this is quoted from the Supreme Court, materially and substantially interfere with the operation of the school. And this goes back to my claim because the students in wearing these armbands, they were not taking any educational time away from what was going on. So what they were doing was constitutional. Another court case I used was Hazelwood School District v. Kohlmeyer. And what this did is, in a school newspaper, a few pages were taken out by the principal because he thought the subject of these, which included divorce and teen pregnancy, were not appropriate for a school setting. Now, the writers of these papers did not believe that, and they thought they were being infringed upon on their right to press. In the end, the educators and the principal were in the right because as long as their actions were reasonably related to legitimate teaching concerns, because these topics are very sensitive and maybe inappropriate as seen in a school setting, as well as the interviews might have been caused some type of disdain towards some of the people involved, even though they were seemingly protected. And as you can see, this picture is Kohlmeyer holding up the newspaper. Now, a counterclaim to this is the Millersville School District v. Gobitis. And in this, there was Jehovah's Witness students, William and Lillian Gobitis, and they were told they did not believe that saluting the flag, they believed that saluting the flag was forbidden by their Bible. And they took this to the Supreme Court because the educators said, you have to do it, it's part of the school regimen. And in the end, the Supreme Court did agree with the educators because the importance of national unity. And this is a counterclaim because even though the students weren't disturbing anything, nor were they causing violence, it was still seen as unconstitutional. However, just 3 years later, this decision was reversed in the West Virginia State Board of Education v. Barnett. And in this court case, they came to the conclusion that the First Amendment cannot enforce unanimity of opinion on any topic, and national symbols like the flag should not receive a level of deference that trumps constitutional protections. And in this picture, you can see the students saluting the flag. And what the main purpose of why this supports it is because by not saluting the flag, they were not causing a distraction. It was a personal belief that was protected by the freedom of religion. So the solution I came up with regarding after all my information was schools should explicitly enumerate what is and what is not considered protected under the First Amendment to prevent any confusion. Just like how we have dress code rules on exactly what is appropriate for school, we should have things like that for First Amendment things like speech or press. And the good thing about this is the limitations will prepare students for the future and the adult world, because the school is not the only place where your rights are restricted. There's also places outside of there, like governmental buildings, where you may experience this too, so it gives students good experience. Now this is the final, I'll restate my claim. The limitations of students' rights demonstrate necessary safety precautions that ensure an efficient learning environment while still upholding the First Amendment. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Two questions. First up, how valid and reliable are the sources that you use, and how do you know?
I would say that the sources I use are very reliable because the first one is, to begin with, is the Constitution, and that's the founding of this nation. So a lot of the stuff that we do, it depends on that, as well as many of the sources I use were court cases. So by the federal government, they were approved upon.
All right, and the next question. If you had more time, what additional research would you conduct related to this issue?
One thing that I would like to do is to view maybe the trends of the First Amendment in public schools, just like the freedom of religion I used with the Minersville School District. I saw that things change over time regarding the First Amendment, and I want to see maybe as we evolve and become different in the generations, if that impacts the First Amendment.
Perfect, you're done.